In this episode of heART Talk, I would like to talk about sadhana or musical practice. Now, each of us who take music seriously, we have some level of expectation that when we open our mouths or when we glide our fingers up and down our musical instrument, a cascade of mellifluous notes and beautiful melodies and mesmerizing rhythms will just flow out. And each of us have different aspirations too. Some of us would like to enthrall audiences and feel the thrill of performing in front of a packed auditorium or stadium. Some others would be enticed by the potential profits in the music industry, hoping to get thousands or even millions of album sales. Nowadays, we talk about the number of views on YouTube and the like, which also translates into sponsorship and advertising revenue. And yet others just want to sing or play for the sheer ecstasy and the soul satisfaction of it, the feeling of inner bliss when they perform, and some even feeling a strong connection with the divine through their music. Whatever your reason may be, many often forget that there is a process in order to reach that level. And this is normally a 3-step process. In the Indian system of music, we call this Gyan, Sadhana, and Siddhi, or knowledge, and then practice, and then perfection. Gyan, or knowledge, is traditionally imparted by a teacher or a guru. We also can get this knowledge from books and more recently from the internet, which is now our global guru. But a physical guru and a good guru would be able to deliver lessons to you in a very structured manner. He would be able to control what you should learn and when you should learn those lessons. He would be able to correct you as you make mistakes in real time and also steer you away from the temptation of learning things and practicing things which are not at your level. In other words, a guru is like a good doctor, able to give you the right pill or the right treatment for your disease at that particular period of time, thus curing you. Another big function of a guru is inspiration and motivation. A good guru would be able to inspire and motivate his students at the various levels of their study, thus keeping them interested and working hard towards success. The objective for any guru is for you to understand whatever is being taught and how it should be done, how it should sound, and what you have to do to get there. These lessons might have to be repeated over and over again until you understand. Understanding is something we do with our brain. And then begins the hard work for any student, sadhana or practice. Now, what is this word sadhana? What is practice? To put it simply, sadhana is the act of repeating, repetition, again and again and again. The work that you have learned to be repeated many times until you get to a stage where it becomes easy to play. You feel comfortable playing it. You feel confident playing it. You become efficient at playing it. In other words, you become perfect at playing it. It's the same with walking and running. Now, most of us today, we are able to walk or run at a fairly efficient manner. But think back about when we were babies. Of course, we can't remember it now, but we can look at other babies today for a good example. Now, when they are learning how to walk, you can see that it takes a tremendous effort for them. There's every bit of concentration. They have to think about balance. They have to think about strength. They have to think about placing every step in front of the other. But with repetition and practice, it becomes easier and easier until today, we don't even think about the act of walking. We think about many other things while we are walking, and we are able to do several other things while we are walking. The act of walking itself becomes that confident that it requires no thought whatsoever. Now, most of us are able to walk and run at a moderate level, But supposing your aspiration is to become the next Usain Bolt, then your level of practice will have to be at a totally different level. You might have to be practicing that act of running again and again for several hours in a day. The act of practice or sadhana has many challenges along the way. Most of them are mental challenges. Now, our monkey minds will always try to trick us. If our guru has said, you should practice this particular lesson 100 times, it is going to be inevitable where your mind will tell you, well, why not 99 times? Or why not 101? Or what if I practice this lesson at a faster speed? Then I can reduce the number of times I have to practice it. Now, all these thoughts are actually distractions. If we do follow the right advice of the Guru and practice that 100 times in the way it was taught, you will achieve the level of success. But all the other variations may just end up distracting you. Practice is something that has to be systematic and constant. You can't, for example, say, oh, well, I feel a bit lazy to practice today, but I'll double the amount of practice tomorrow. It's like me saying, oh, I'm too lazy to brush my teeth today, but I'll double the amount of time I brush my teeth tomorrow. It just doesn't make sense. Speaking of the example of brushing teeth, practice should become an habit like brushing teeth. So much so that if you miss a day of brushing teeth, you feel uncomfortable. You're not comfortable, you're not confident to go out in public and talk to people at close range. Well, the same thing applies to practice. You should develop it to such a level that supposing there was a day you didn't practice, it should feel uncomfortable in your system. Something doesn't feel right. Practice is a routine. Practice should be regimented. Practice should be a habit. And practice should be something that becomes very hard to break from. We practice for everything. We practice for our sitting posture. We practice for finger strength and dexterity. For a singer, they have to practice to improve their vocal range and vocal cords. We practice for volume, we practice for speed, we practice for tone and tonal control. We practice for correctness of producing notes and scales. We practice for control of tempo and rhythm. Even mentally, we have to practice for memory and memorizing things. We have to practice for recognition of notes and the instant recognition of notes and phrases. We have to practice to compare. We have to practice to control. We have to practice to be so ready that if somebody were to wake you up in the dead of the night and say, play this piece of music, you would be able to sit up, pick up your instrument or open your voice and be able to produce that music. That is the level of readiness that we want to be. What we are looking for is to become perfect in whatever we do. And what does that mean? Perfection means an ease of producing the music that we want, the ease of being able to change the type of music that you play, to vary the speed and still produce it effectively. We need this level of practice to be able to then improvise spontaneously as we play. The ability to add or amend your music as you are playing it live. Another advantage is that you will then be able to interact and exchange freely with other musicians on a spontaneous fashion. You're able to feed off each other's energy and you are able to give your energy in return. When you reach this level of performance, that's when the true magic occurs on stage. You are able to pour out your emotions freely. You're able to feel and savor every little part of your music. And when you do, you can be sure that your audience will as well. There are several levels for us to follow in practice. First and foremost is discipline. And that is, we have to fix a time and a duration for our practice, preferably every day. Now, this is not easy. In a modern world, there are many distractions, from the internet to social circles to even family sometimes. So we have to be prepared to sacrifice certain things. We have to have the ability to say no to certain things and certain people. Another habit, another step that we should inculcate is mental practice. Now, this is a type of practice that you would do outside of your regular regimented practice where you sit down with your instrument or you sit down to sing. This is practice that you would do for rhythmic patterns, you would think about melodies, you would practice memorizing, and you can do this at various times of the day. You could do this in the bathroom, you could do this just before you get to bed. It could take just a few seconds or a few minutes at a time. But if you inculcate this habit of mental practice at different points of the day, that will be helpful in many, many ways when you actually sit down to practice your instrument or your singing. Another very important step towards effective practice is to listen. Now, we all have different gadgets today which we can carry around with us anywhere. And so we should try to program ourselves to listen to the type of music that we want to play as much as possible. But this time we are not listening as a mere connoisseur of music. You're listening as a student of music, which means you have to put your mind there and analyze various parts of that music and try to understand it. There is also a lot of benefits in passive listening, which means you have music playing in the background as you do your other things. And at some subconscious level, it is seeping into your head. There will be some amount of recollection. I do hope you follow these steps of practice and sadhana, and I do hope that you achieve that dream of yours, be it performing in front of a wide crowd, or performing for the Almighty in full devotion, or for your own soul satisfaction. This has been a heart talk.